I never thought I would be standing in my kitchen watching a middle-aged woman in a neon pink puffer jacket march through 2 feet of snow to steal my shovel off my front porch. But here we were. The blizzard that forecasters had been screaming about for 3 days had finally hit Breckenridge, Colorado, and it was hitting hard. Whiteout conditions, wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour, and accumulation rates of 3 inches per hour. The kind of storm that made you grateful for a warm house and a full pantry. The kind of storm that also apparently brought out the worst in people like Brenda Patterson, president of the Pinecrest Mountain Estates Homeowners Association. My name is Owen Walsh, and I had lived in this neighborhood for 5 years. I bought my property specifically because it sat at the edge of the development, backed up against national forest land, and had a detached garage large enough to house my pride and joy. A 2019 Ford F350 with a custom 8-foot snowplow attachment. In a mountain town like Breckenridge, that truck was not just a vehicle, it was a lifeline. It was also the only plow truck in our entire HOA community. Most people did not know about the truck. I kept it in my garage and I did not advertise my services. I plowed for the county on contract during big storms, and occasionally I would help out neighbors who needed it. But I never made a big deal about it. That discretion was about to become very important. Through my kitchen window, I watched Brenda trudge back toward her house 3 doors down, my heavy-duty snow shovel gripped in her gloved hands like she had just conquered Everest. My phone buzzed on the counter. It was a text from my buddy Marcus Chen, who lived across the street. "Dude, did Brenda just take your shovel?" I typed back quickly. "Yep, watch the whole thing." "What are you going to do?" "Nothing yet. Let her dig herself out if she wants it that bad." I set my phone down and poured another cup of coffee. The storm was scheduled to continue for at least another 18 hours. We already had 26 inches on the ground according to my weather station, and it showed no signs of slowing. My phone buzzed again, but this time it was not Marcus. It was a county dispatch notification. They were requesting all available plow drivers to report for emergency clearing operations on Highway 9 and surrounding mountain roads. The message came with hazard pay rates that made my eyebrows raise. Double time plus a storm bonus. I was texting dispatch back my availability when someone pounded on my front door. Not knocked, pounded. Like the police with a warrant. I opened the door to find Brenda standing there, snow covering her shoulders and sticking to her badly highlighted blonde hair. She was 52 years old according to the HOA directory, but she carried herself like she was royalty addressing peasants. Her face was red from cold and exertion, and she was breathing hard. "Owen, we need to talk about your driveway," she said, not even bothering with a greeting. "My driveway." I leaned against the doorframe, keeping the warm air inside. It is 3 inches over the property line on the left side. I measured it last week. That is a violation of HOA Code Section 12.3b. You need to have it repaired or you will be fined. I blinked at her. "Brenda, we are in the middle of a blizzard. You came over here to talk about my driveway being 3 inches too wide. HOA business does not stop for weather, Owen. I have been trying to reach you for days about this. I have been working. I do actually have a job." "Well, you need to respond to HOA correspondence within 48 hours. That is in the bylaws you signed when you purchased your property." She shifted my shovel to her other hand. "Is that my shovel?" I asked, even though I knew the answer. "I borrowed it. My shovel broke, and I need to clear my walkway. HOA rules state that all walkways must be cleared within 12 hours of snowfall cessation for safety reasons. The snow has not stopped falling, Brenda. When it does stop, I need to be ready. I will return this when I am finished." That is not borrowing, that is stealing. I did not give you permission to take my property." Her face pinched into an expression I had seen many times at HOA meetings. The look that said she was about to quote bylaws at me until I gave up and went away. HOA Code Section 8.7 allows for the temporary requisition of tools and equipment during emergencies when necessary for community safety and compliance with association standards. I had to give her credit for creativity. That section is about borrowing the HOA's equipment, not stealing from homeowners. I am the HOA president. Therefore, HOA equipment includes equipment I deem necessary for HOA business. The legal gymnastics were almost impressive. "Give me my shovel back, Brenda." "I will return it when I am done. I expect you to address the driveway issue within 2 weeks or the fine will be $500 per day." She turned and started walking back down my unshoveled front path. I watched her go, shaking my head. The woman was unbelievable. I closed the door and went back to my coffee. My phone was ringing now. County Dispatch. "Owen, this is Rita at County Operations. Did you get our message about Highway 9? "Yeah, I am available. When do you need me?" "As soon as possible. We have multiple vehicles stranded between Breckenridge and Frisco. Can you start with residential clearing in your area and then move to the highway?" Residential clearing. That was unusual. The county did not normally contract for neighborhood work. "We got a call from a homeowners association president in your area requesting emergency services. A Brenda Patterson. She said her community is completely snowed in and people cannot get out. She was very insistent that we send someone immediately." I almost laughed. Of course she did. "Rita, I live in that neighborhood. We are not snowed in. It is still actively snowing. Nobody should be driving anyway." She said it was a safety emergency. She was pretty worked up about it. "When did she call?" "About 20 minutes ago. She called 3 times actually. Threatened to call the governor's office if we did not send someone." I rubbed my forehead. This was peak Brenda behavior. "All right, I will start with Highway 9 like you originally said. The neighborhood can wait until the storm passes." "Perfect. Be safe out there, Owen. Roads are bad." I hung up and started getting ready. My plow truck was already prepped. I kept it maintained and fueled during winter months specifically for situations like this. I put on my insulated coveralls, heavy boots, and grabbed my emergency kit. Then I headed out to the garage. The wind hit me like a physical force when I opened the side door. Snow was falling so thick, I could barely see my truck 10 feet away. I made it to the garage, hit the opener, and watched the door slowly rise, pushing through the snow drift that had formed against it. My truck started on the first turn of the key. I let it warm up while I did a quick walk around inspection. Plow hydraulics looked good, tires were solid, lights working. I climbed in, put it in gear, and started backing out. That was when I saw Brenda running toward me, waving her arms frantically. I stopped and rolled down the window. Snow immediately blew into the cab. "Owen, where are you going?" she shouted over the wind. County contracted me for plowing. Emergency operations. "You need to plow the neighborhood first. I called the county. They are sending someone." "I am the someone, Brenda, and I am going to clear Highway 9 first. That is where the stranded vehicles are." Her face went from red to purple. "You will plow this neighborhood first. I am the HOA president and I am directing you to clear our streets. You are not my boss and you do not get to direct county emergency operations. Move out of the way. I will have you fined. This is abandonment of community responsibility. There is no such thing. Move, Brenda." She did not move. She stood right in front of my truck, arms crossed, snow accumulating on her head and shoulders. We sat there for a solid 30 seconds, staring at each other through my windshield. Finally, I put the truck in park, pulled out my phone, and called the county non-emergency line. Breckenridge County Sheriff's Department, what is your emergency? This is not an emergency, but I am a county contractor trying to respond to an emergency plow request, and someone is blocking my vehicle. Can I get an officer to my location? Someone is blocking a county emergency vehicle. Technically, it is my personal truck, but I am under contract for emergency operations. She will not move. What is your location? I gave the address. The dispatcher said someone would be there as soon as possible, but the storm was causing issues and it might be a while. I thanked her and hung up. Brenda was still standing there. She had her phone out now, also making calls. I could see her mouth moving animatedly behind the wall of falling snow. My phone rang. County dispatch again. Owen, we just got a complaint call saying you are refusing to plow a residential neighborhood experiencing a safety emergency. Rada, it is the same woman. She is literally standing in front of my truck right now, preventing me from leaving. Are you serious? Dead serious. I called the sheriff's department. Jesus. Okay, listen, just get to Highway 9 when you can. We have 2 families with small kids stuck in their cars. That is the priority. I am trying. She will not move. Want me to call her? Could not hurt. I watched through the windshield as Brenda's phone rang. She looked at it, clearly saw it was the county calling back, and rejected the call. Then she turned back to me and made a gesture that was clearly turn off the truck. This was insane. I laid on the horn. The sound was deafening in the quiet, snow-muffled neighborhood. Brenda did not even flinch. She just stood there, arms crossed, phone in hand. Marcus appeared from his house across the street, bundled up in a ski jacket. He trudged through the snow toward us. I could see his mouth moving as he talked to Brenda, gesturing toward the truck, then toward the street. Brenda shook her head violently and pointed at her house. Marcus threw his hands up and came around to my driver's window. She says you have to plow the neighborhood first because it is an HOA safety emergency, and she has authority to requisition community resources. He shouted over the wind. I am not a community resource. I am a county contractor responding to actual stranded people on the highway. I told her that. She does not care. She said if you do not plow the neighborhood first, she will have your truck towed for creating a safety hazard. It is in my driveway. How is that a safety hazard? I do not know, man. She is crazy. I made a decision. I revved the engine and started rolling forward very, very slowly. Brenda's eyes went wide. She held up her hands, but I kept moving at a crawl. She backed up step by step, maintaining eye contact with me the whole time. When I got to the street, she finally moved to the side. I gave her a wave and headed toward the main road out of the neighborhood. In my rearview mirror, I could see her on her phone again, gesturing wildly. The drive to Highway 9 was treacherous. Even with 4-wheel drive and the weight of the plow, I was sliding on corners. The wind was brutal, creating massive drifts across the road. It took me 45 minutes to make a drive that normally took 15. When I got to the highway, I found the stranded vehicles immediately. A minivan and an SUV, both buried up to their door handles in snow. I could see faces in the windows. I got to work, dropping the plow and starting to clear a path. It took 2 hours of steady work to clear enough road that the vehicles could get moving again. The families were grateful, the parents nearly in tears. One of the kids, maybe 5 years old, waved at me from the minivan window as they drove away toward town. Rita called with the next location. Then another. Then another. I worked straight through the afternoon and into the evening, clearing roads, helping stranded motorists, making paths for emergency vehicles. The storm started to break around 8 p.m. The snow was still falling, but the wind had died down and the accumulation rate had slowed. My phone had been buzzing constantly. I had 37 missed calls and over 60 text messages. Most were from Brenda. I ignored them and kept working. Around 10 p.m., the storm finally stopped. The sky cleared and stars appeared, bright and sharp in the cold mountain air. I finished my last section of Highway 9 and called Rita to report in. "Owen, you are a lifesaver. Literally, we had 3 potential medical emergencies that we got to because of your work tonight. Good job." "Thanks, Rita. I am heading home. Call me if you need anything else." "Will do." "Get some rest." I pointed the truck toward home. Every muscle in my body ached. I had been plowing for almost 12 hours straight. All I wanted was food and sleep. When I turned onto my street, I immediately knew something was wrong. There were vehicles everywhere. 2 sheriff's department SUVs, a fire truck, and what looked like half the neighborhood standing in the street. My stomach dropped. I parked the truck and climbed out. Marcus spotted me and rushed over. "Dude, where have you been? It has been crazy." I was plowing the highway. "What happened?" "Brenda happened. She called the sheriff's department and reported you for theft of HOA property and abandoning the neighborhood during an emergency." "What HOA property?" "The snow shovel. She claimed it was HOA equipment and you stole it before the storm." I laughed. I could not help it. "The shovel I bought at Home Depot 3 years ago. That I watched her steal off my porch this morning." "Yeah, well, she has a different story. She also filed a complaint with the county saying you refused to provide emergency services to the neighborhood despite being under contract to do so." A sheriff's deputy noticed me and walked over. He was young, maybe late 20s, with the kind of expression that said he had already heard way too much tonight. "Owen Walsh?" he asked. "That is me." "I am Deputy Carson. We need to talk about some complaints that have been filed." "The complaints from Brenda Patterson, among others. Can we go inside?" I led him into my house. Marcus followed until the deputy gave him a look and he retreated to the porch. Inside, I offered coffee, which Deputy Carson accepted gratefully. "Long night?" I asked. "You have no idea." "So let me get the story straight from you. This morning, did you take a snow shovel from Miss Patterson?" "No. She took a snow shovel from me, off my front porch. I watched her do it through my kitchen window. She says the shovel belongs to the HOA and you stole it from the HOA storage shed last week." "The HOA does not have a storage shed, and even if it did, I bought that shovel myself. I probably still have the receipt." "Can you find it?" I went to my office and dug through my files. I kept receipts for everything, a habit from my father who had been an accountant. It took me 10 minutes, but I found it. Home Depot, Breckenridge location, purchased January 2023. 1 heavy-duty snow shovel, $49.99. Deputy Carson examined the receipt and made notes. "Okay, that handles that complaint. Now about the county contract situation. Did you refuse to plow the neighborhood this morning?" "No. I was contracted by the county to plow Highway 9 for emergency operations. There were stranded families. That was the priority. Miss Patterson says you are contractually obligated to plow the neighborhood first." "I have no contract with the HOA. I have a contract with Summit County. They determine my priorities, not Brenda." She showed me an HOA bylaw that says residents with commercial equipment must make it available to the HOA during emergencies. I felt my jaw clench. "Can I see that?" He pulled out his phone and showed me a photo of a printed document. It was HOA letterhead, but I had never seen this bylaw before. The section number was 23.4C, which was suspicious because our HOA bylaws only went up to section 19. "This is fake," I said. "Our bylaws do not go this high. She made this up, made it up." Printed it herself. Check the official HOA bylaws filed with the county. This section does not exist. Deputy Carson looked tired. Can you get me a copy of the official bylaws? They are public record. They should be in the county clerk's office, but I have a copy too. I went back to my office and grabbed the binder I had gotten when I purchased the house. The bylaws were in the front, all 19 sections of them. Deputy Carson compared the documents on his phone. His expression shifted from tired to annoyed. Son of a gun, she did fake it. Brenda has a habit of making up rules when the real ones do not suit her purposes. This is filing a false police report. I need to talk to her again. He stood up, then paused. For what it is worth, I am sorry about all this. We got called out here 3 times tonight because of her complaints. 3 times. She called in a noise complaint about your truck at 6 p.m. Then she called at 8 claiming you were trespassing on HOA property. Then at 9 she called again saying there was suspicious activity at your house. I was plowing Highway 9 the entire time. My house was empty. Yeah, we figured that out. Your neighbors vouched for you. He headed toward the door, then stopped. Actually, we might need a statement from you about the shovel theft. Since you have the receipt and witnessed the incident, we can pursue charges if you want. For a shovel, it is theft. And combined with the false police report, it paints a pattern of behavior. Up to you. I thought about it. The shovel was not worth much, but Brenda's behavior was escalating. Let me think about it. Can I let you know tomorrow? Sure. Here is my card. Call me if you need anything else tonight. He left, and I watched through the window as he walked over to Brenda's house. She answered the door still wearing the pink puffer jacket. I could not hear what was said, but I saw her face go from confident to shocked to angry in about 30 seconds. She pointed toward my house multiple times. Deputy Carson shook his head and said something else. Brenda slammed the door. Marcus knocked on my door a few minutes later. That was intense. What did the deputy say? I filled him in on everything. Marcus whistled low. She faked an HOA bylaw. That is next level. That is Brenda. She cannot stand not getting her way. So what are you going to do right now? Eat something and sleep. I have been up since 5 a.m. Fair enough. Hey, a bunch of us are planning to talk to the HOA board about removing Brenda as president. After tonight, I think we have enough people willing to vote for it. You interested? Definitely. Let me know when. Marcus left and I finally got to make dinner. While I ate leftover pizza standing at my kitchen counter, I scrolled through the messages on my phone. Most were from Brenda, increasingly frantic demands that I plow the neighborhood immediately. A few were from neighbors thanking me for being out there helping with the actual emergency. One was from my buddy Jake, who lived 2 streets over. Hey man, Brenda is telling everyone you abandoned the neighborhood and she is calling for an emergency HOA meeting tomorrow night to discuss your violations. Just a heads up, tomorrow night. Perfect. I was exhausted, but I texted back. Thanks for the warning, I will be there. I fell asleep around midnight and woke up at 7 to my phone ringing. It was Rita from County Dispatch. Owen, sorry to wake you, but we have a situation. Did you plow your neighborhood last night after you finished Highway 9? No, I came straight home and crashed. Why? We are getting calls from residents saying their street has not been plowed and they cannot get out. One of them mentioned you specifically, said you were supposed to handle it. Let me guess. Brenda Patterson. How did you know? Because she has been harassing me about it since yesterday morning. Rita, the county does not contract for residential neighborhood plowing. That is not part of my job. I know that, you know that, but she is claiming we told her we would send someone. You told her you would send someone for Highway 9. She decided that meant the neighborhood. Rita sighed. This woman is going to give me an ulcer. All right, I will handle it. Thanks, Owen. And seriously, great work yesterday. You saved lives. After I hung up, I looked out my front window. The neighborhood was buried. 3 feet of snow in most places, drifts up to 5 feet against houses and vehicles. It was a winter wonderland that would take days to dig out from. Most of my neighbors had SUVs or trucks with 4-wheel drive, but even those would struggle in this depth. My driveway was clear because I had plowed it when I came home last night. Brenda's driveway, 3 houses down, was completely buried. I could see her minivan under a massive snow drift. My shovel was stuck upright in the snow near her front door where she had apparently abandoned it. Around noon, the sound of a commercial snowplow rumbled through the neighborhood. I looked out to see a huge orange plow truck from a private company making its way down the street. It was not county equipment. Someone had hired a private company, Marcus called. "Are you seeing this? The plow?" "Yeah." "Who hired them?" "Brenda did. She sent out an email this morning saying she had arranged for professional snow removal and everyone's HOA dues would cover it. Our dues are like $200 a year. There is no way that covers a commercial plow job for the whole neighborhood." That is what I said. Check your email. There is more. I opened my laptop and pulled up my email. Sure enough, there was a message from Brenda sent to the entire HOA mailing list at 8 a.m. "Dear Pinecrest Mountain Estates residents, due to the emergency snow event and the refusal of certain residents to provide assistance, despite having the means to do so, I have arranged for professional snow removal services. The cost of this service will be split among all HOA members as an emergency assessment. Each household will be charged $750 payable within 30 days. Additionally, there will be an emergency HOA meeting tonight at 7 p.m. at the community clubhouse to discuss violations and necessary disciplinary actions. Attendance is mandatory. Regards, Brenda Patterson, HOA President." I read it 3 times. $750 per household. There were 48 houses in the development. That was $36,000 for a plow job that should cost maybe $5,000 tops. My phone started ringing off the hook. The first call was from Joanne Martinez, an elderly resident who lived alone on the other side of the neighborhood. "Owen, did you see this email? I am on a fixed income. I cannot afford $750. "I saw it, Joanne. Do not pay anything yet. This is not legitimate." "But she said it is an emergency assessment. Is not that legal?" "Emergency assessments require a board vote and homeowner approval for amounts over a certain threshold. She cannot just decide this on her own. Do not worry, we will handle it at the meeting tonight." I spent the next hour fielding similar calls from worried neighbors. Everyone was panicking about the sudden bill. A few people were angry at me, apparently believing Brenda's story that I had refused to help. I explained the situation to each of them as patiently as I could. At 3 p.m., Marcus called again. "Dude, you need to see what is happening at Brenda's house." I walked down the street, trudging through snow that came up to my knees. A small crowd had gathered outside Brenda's house. The commercial plow had cleared the main street but had not touched any driveways. Brenda was standing on her front porch yelling at the plow driver who was standing in the street looking exhausted. "You were supposed to plow the driveways too. That was part of the contract," Brenda shouted. "Madam, you hired us for street clearing only. Driveways are extra." "That is what we discussed on the phone and what the contract says." The driver held up a clipboard with papers attached. "I never agreed to that. You are trying to charge me more money. The base price was $5,000 for street clearing. You approved that price. Driveway clearing is an additional $300 per driveway. That is industry standard. This is fraud. I am calling the police," the driver shrugged. "Do what you want, lady. We cleared the streets like you paid for. You want driveways, it is extra." He climbed back into his truck and drove off. Brenda stood on her porch, face red, breathing hard. She spotted me in the crowd. "This is your fault, Owen. If you had just plowed the neighborhood when I told you to, none of this would have happened." "I was busy saving actual lives on Highway 9, Brenda. You know, the job I was contracted to do by the county. You live here. You have a responsibility to this community. I have a responsibility to my actual job. The HOA does not employ me. We could employ you. I am bringing that up at the meeting tonight. We should have a dedicated snow removal contractor on retainer. You cannot afford me, Brenda. The county pays double time plus hazard bonuses. You think the HOA's $200 annual dues will cover that?" She sputtered, searching for a response. Finally, she just pointed at me. "You are getting fined. Multiple violations. Your driveway, your refusal to help, your vehicle blocking the street this morning." My vehicle was in my driveway. It has been there since I got home last night. "It was in the street yesterday morning. You were creating a hazard." "I was trying to leave to go plow the highway. You were blocking me." "That is not how I remember it." Marcus stepped forward from the crowd. "I saw the whole thing, Brenda. Owen is right. You stood in front of his truck and refused to move. I tried to get you to move and you would not. You are lying to protect your friend." "I am not lying. There are probably 6 other people who saw it too." More voices chimed in from the crowd. "I saw it from my window." "Yeah, Brenda, you were blocking him." "I watched the whole thing." Brenda's face was turning purple again. "You are all conspiring against me. This is a hostile work environment. You do not work here, Brenda. You are a volunteer HOA president," someone called out. "I work very hard for this community. And this is the thanks I get. Fine. We will settle this at the meeting tonight. All of you better be there." She stormed inside and slammed the door. The crowd dispersed, everyone trudging back to their houses through the snow. Marcus walked with me back to my place. "She is losing it," he said. "She lost it a long time ago. This is just everyone finally seeing it. Do you think the board will actually remove her? If they do not, I am voting against every single one of them in the next election. Hell, I will run for the board myself if I have to." Marcus laughed. "President Owen Walsh, I would vote for you. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. One nightmare at a time." Back at my house, I started preparing for the meeting. I printed out copies of the receipt for my shovel, the official HOA bylaws showing that Brenda's quoted section did not exist, and my contract with the county showing that I was obligated to respond to their assignments, not HOA requests. I also pulled up the HOA governing documents that outlined how emergency assessments had to be approved. Spoiler alert, the president could not just decide to charge everyone $750 on a whim. At 6:30, I bundled up and walked to the clubhouse. It was a small building at the entrance to the neighborhood, used for HOA meetings and the occasional community event. Someone had shoveled a path to the door, and light poured out from the windows. Inside, every chair was full. People were standing along the walls. I had never seen this many residents at an HOA meeting. Usually, it was maybe 10 people plus the board. Tonight, there had to be 60 people crammed into a space designed for 40. Brenda sat at the front table with the other board members. Tom Richardson, the vice president, Sandra Kim, the secretary, and Paul Henderson, the treasurer. Tom and Paul looked uncomfortable. Sandra looked like she wanted to be anywhere else. Brenda called the meeting to order at 7 p.m. sharp. "Thank you all for coming. We have important business to discuss tonight. First, I want to address the emergency snow removal assessment. As you all know, we experienced a severe snow event yesterday and last night. I took swift action to ensure our neighborhood streets were cleared for safety purposes. You charged us $750 each, someone shouted from the back. Emergency assessments are allowed under HOA guidelines when necessary for community safety. This was necessary. I raised my hand. Point of order. Can you cite which section of the governing documents allows the president to unilaterally approve an emergency assessment of that size? Brenda glared at me. Owen, you are already facing multiple violations. I suggest you stay quiet. That is not how this works. I am a homeowner and HOA member. I have a right to speak. Now, which section? She shuffled papers on the table in front of her. Section 15.2. I pulled out my copy of the bylaws and flipped to Section 15. Section 15.2 says emergency assessments over $500 require a majority vote of the board plus homeowner approval for amounts over $1,000 per household. You did not get either. This was an emergency. There was no time. The snow stopped at 10 p.m. last night. You sent the email at 8 a.m. this morning. You had 10 hours to call an emergency board meeting. You did not. This assessment is invalid. Paul, the treasurer, cleared his throat. Owen is right, Brenda. I told you this morning that you needed board approval. You said you would handle it. I did handle it. I handled it by making sure our streets were cleared. By spending $36,000 of HOA money that we do not have, Paul continued. Our operating budget for the entire year is less than $10,000. We cannot pay the snow removal company. The room erupted. Everyone was talking at once, asking questions, making accusations. Brenda banged her gavel repeatedly until people quieted down. We will collect the assessment from homeowners and pay the company. Problem solved. No, I said clearly. You made an unauthorized expenditure. That is your problem to solve, not ours. This is a community expense. Everyone benefits from cleared streets. Then you should have gotten approval first. That is how this works. That is literally the point of having bylaws and a board. Tom, the vice president, finally spoke up. Brenda, I think we need to discuss this as a board before we go any further. We are in the middle of a meeting, Tom. Then I am making a motion to table the assessment discussion until we can review the governing documents and determine the proper procedure. I second that motion, Sandra said immediately. Motion is tabled, Tom said. All in favor? 3 hands went up. Tom, Sandra, and Paul. Brenda sat with her arms crossed, not voting. Motion passes. Now, what are these violations you mentioned against Owen? Brenda pulled out a folder thick with papers. Owen Walsh has committed multiple violations of HOA codes. First, his driveway exceeds the allowable width by 3 inches. Second, he refused to provide emergency assistance to the community despite having the means to do so. Third, he stole HOA property. Fourth, he created a traffic hazard by blocking the street during the snow emergency. I held up my hand. I can respond to each of those. First, my driveway. Brenda claims it is 3 inches over the property line. I had it surveyed when it was installed 5 years ago. It is within the property boundaries. I have the survey documentation. I pulled out the paperwork and handed it to Tom. Second, the emergency assistance. I was contracted by Summit County for emergency snow removal on Highway 9. There were stranded families with children in potentially life-threatening situations. That was my job, assigned by the county, which takes priority over HOA requests. I have documentation of my contract and the dispatch records. You should have helped your own community first, Brenda interjected. People's lives were at risk, Brenda. Actual lives. The highway situation was a real emergency. The neighborhood was inconvenienced by snow, which happens every winter. We could have had emergencies here too, did we? Did anyone have a medical emergency that they could not get help for? I looked around the room. Nobody spoke up. No, then it was not an emergency, it was an inconvenience. I continued. Third, the stolen property. Brenda claims I stole a shovel from the HOA. That shovel is mine. I bought it at Home Depot 3 years ago. I have the receipt. Brenda took it from my front porch yesterday morning without permission. I watched her do it. That is theft, not the other way around. I handed the receipt to Tom. That is not true. Brenda stood up. That shovel was in the HOA storage area. What storage area? We do not have an HOA storage area. We do not even have HOA equipment besides the lawnmower that Paul keeps in his garage for mowing the common area. Paul nodded. That is true. We do not have a storage shed. Fourth, I said, the traffic hazard. I was not blocking the street. I was in my driveway trying to leave for my county job. Brenda stood in front of my truck and refused to move. Multiple neighbors witnessed this. I even called the sheriff's department because she would not let me leave. Marcus stood up. I can confirm that. I saw the whole thing. Brenda was blocking Owen's truck. 3 other neighbors also stood to confirm they had seen it. Tom looked at the pile of documents I had handed him, then at Brenda. Brenda, none of these violations appear to be valid. Do you have any evidence to support your claims? I do not need evidence. I am the president. I observed these violations myself. That is not how this works, Sandra said quietly. If you are making accusations, you need proof. I do not need proof. My word as president should be enough. The room had gone very quiet. People were staring at Brenda with expressions ranging from shock to anger to pity. Tom set down the papers. Brenda, I am going to make a motion. I move that we dismiss all violations against Owen Walsh due to lack of evidence and contradictory testimony. Second, Paul said immediately. All in favor. 3 hands went up again. Brenda sat rigid in her chair. Motion passes. Owen, you are cleared of all violations. I nodded. Thank you. Now I have some questions for the board. First, who approved the snow removal contract? I did, Brenda said. As president, I have the authority to make emergency decisions. Paul shook his head. For expenses under $500, this was $36,000. You needed board approval. I could not reach you. It was an emergency. You did not try to reach me. I was home all day. My phone never rang. I sent you an email at 8 a.m. after you had already hired the company. I checked. You called them at 6:30 in the morning. Brenda's face went through several shades of red and purple. I had to act quickly. You had to act correctly, Tom said. This is a major problem, Brenda. We do not have $36,000. Our bank account has about $8,000 in it. Then we will collect the assessment. We cannot collect an assessment that was not properly approved, Paul said. Owen already pointed that out. The assessment is invalid. Then what do we do? For the first time, Brenda sounded uncertain. You personally guaranteed payment to the snow removal company, Tom asked. I signed the contract as HOA president. Did you sign it personally or on behalf of the HOA? On behalf of the HOA. That is what I am supposed to do. Tom and Paul exchanged looks. Paul spoke carefully. If the board does not ratify the contract, then the signature was unauthorized. That makes you personally liable. Brenda went pale. What does that mean? It means you might have to pay for it yourself. The room exploded again. People were shouting, some at Brenda, some at the board, some at each other. It took 10 minutes to restore order. When things finally calmed down, an older woman named Dorothy raised her hand. I would like to make a motion. I move that we hold a vote of no confidence in Brenda Patterson as HOA president, effective immediately. Second, at least 5 people shouted at once. Tom looked uncomfortable. That is a serious motion. Are you sure? Absolutely sure, Dorothy said. She has violated our trust, spent money without authorization, filed false complaints against a homeowner, and from what I am hearing, committed theft and filed false police reports. She needs to be removed. I did not commit theft. That shovel belongs to the HOA. You keep saying that, but you have provided zero proof, Dorothy shot back. Owen has a receipt showing he bought it. What do you have? Brenda said nothing. Tom sighed. All right, we have a motion and a second. According to our bylaws, a no-confidence vote requires a majority of homeowners present to pass. We have 62 homeowners here tonight out of 48 households, so some households have multiple representatives. We will count 1 vote per household. All those in favor of removing Brenda Patterson as president, raise your hand. Hands shot up all over the room. Tom, Sandra, and Paul counted. It took a few minutes, but they conferred and Tom announced the results. 41 votes in favor, 5 opposed, 2 abstentions. The motion passes. Brenda, you are removed as president effective immediately. Brenda stood up so fast her chair fell over backwards. You cannot do this to me. I have done everything for this community. I have sacrificed my time, my energy, my own money. You violated the bylaws and the trust of the community, Tom said. This is the consequence. I will sue. I will sue all of you. This is illegal termination. You are a volunteer, Brenda. There is no such thing as a legal termination of a volunteer position. She grabbed her papers and her purse, knocking half the items off the table in the process. You will regret this, all of you. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. The room sat in shocked silence for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Others joined in until the whole room was applauding. Tom looked overwhelmed. All right, well, I guess I am acting president until we can hold elections. First order of business, the snow removal contract. Paul, can you contact the company and explain the situation? I will call them first thing tomorrow morning. We will see if we can negotiate a settlement for what we can actually afford to pay. Good. Second, we need to address the assessment. Since it was not properly approved, it is void. Nobody owes the $750. I will send out an email tonight clarifying that. Relief washed over people's faces. Several people thanked Tom and Paul. The meeting continued for another hour, covering routine business and discussing next steps. When it finally ended, dozens of people came up to shake my hand and apologize for believing Brenda's stories about me. I should have known better, Joanne Martinez said. You have always been a good neighbor. Do not worry about it. Brenda can be very convincing when she wants to be. Marcus walked home with me through the snow. That was intense. That is one word for it. You think she will actually sue? Doubt it. She does not have a case, but I would not put it past her to try. We reached my house and Marcus headed across the street to his place. I went inside, fed my dog Bear, who had been patiently waiting, and collapsed on the couch. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Deputy Carson. Heard about the HOA meeting. Brenda called us again tonight claiming the board violated her civil rights. Just wanted to give you a heads up. We did not respond because it is not a police matter. I texted back. Thanks for the warning. She is no longer president as of tonight. Best news I have heard all day. I fell asleep on the couch with Bear curled up next to me, completely exhausted. The next morning, I woke up to my phone ringing. It was Rita from County Dispatch. Owen, I know you need rest, but we have another situation. Can you help clear some of the residential streets around town? We are getting calls from people who cannot get to work or the hospital. Yeah, I can do that. What is the pay rate? Standard contract rate. Storm bonus ended when the blizzard stopped. That works. Send me the locations. I spent the next 3 days plowing residential streets all over Breckenridge. The county was paying me well, and I was helping people who genuinely needed it. I specifically did not plow my own neighborhood. That might have been petty, but after everything that had happened, I wanted to see how the HOA would handle it themselves. On the 4th day after the storm, I got a call from Tom Richardson. "Owen, it is Tom from the HOA. Do you have a minute?" "Sure, what is up?" "The board met last night and we wanted to formally apologize for everything that happened with Brenda. Her behavior was unacceptable and we should have stepped in sooner." "I appreciate that, Tom. We also wanted to ask if you would be willing to plow the neighborhood streets. We know you have been working for the county and we would like to hire you officially. We can pay your standard rate, whatever that is." "What about the snow removal company Brenda hired?" Paul negotiated with them. "We are paying them $2,000 for the work they actually did on the main street." They agreed to void the rest of the contract since Brenda did not have proper authorization to sign it. "So you have budget for more plowing. We will take it out of our operating fund and assess everyone equally next year to replenish it." We figured it out to be about $42 per household. Everyone we talked to was fine with that. That was reasonable. "All right. My rate for residential plowing is $150 per hour. It will probably take me about 4 hours to do the whole neighborhood. $600 total. That is perfect. When can you start? Give me an hour to finish this street and I will head over." "Thank you, Owen, really. We appreciate it." I finished the street I was working on and headed back to my neighborhood. When I arrived, I saw that someone had spray-painted obscenities on the clubhouse door. The words were directed at me specifically. I called Tom. "Hey, did you see the graffiti on the clubhouse?" "What graffiti?" He sounded genuinely confused. I sent him a photo. He called back immediately. "Oh my God, that was not there this morning. I will call the sheriff's department. I think I know who did it. Brenda." "That would be my guess." Tom sighed. "I will handle it, just focus on the plowing." I got to work, dropping my plow and starting on the side streets. Residents came out to wave and thank me as I passed. Kids were playing in the massive snow piles, building forts and having snowball fights. It felt good to finally be helping my actual community instead of dealing with Brenda's drama. I was halfway through when I saw Brenda's minivan pull into the neighborhood. It drove slowly down the street I had just cleared, then stopped in front of the clubhouse. Brenda got out, looked at the graffiti on the door, and got back in her van. She sat there for a few minutes, then drove away. 20 minutes later, Deputy Carson pulled up next to my truck. I rolled down the window. "We got a call about vandalism," he said. "Yeah, someone spray-painted the clubhouse door. Tom Richardson called it in." "Any idea who did it?" I saw Brenda Patterson pull up and look at it, then leave. "But I do not have proof she did it." "Did you see her actually spray-paint it?" "No, it was there when I arrived. But given everything that has happened, she is the obvious suspect. I will talk to her. We might be able to pull some surveillance footage from houses nearby if anyone has cameras. Marcus Chen across the street has a Ring doorbell. It might have caught something. I will check with him." "Thanks, Owen." He drove off and I went back to plowing. By the time I finished, it was late afternoon and I was exhausted again. Tom came out to inspect the work and handed me a check for $600. "Perfect job. Thank you so much." "No problem. Call me if you need anything else." I went home, showered, and was making dinner when my phone rang. It was Deputy Carson again. "Owen, I wanted to update you. We reviewed the Ring camera footage from your neighbor's house. It clearly shows Brenda Patterson spray-painting the clubhouse door at around noon today. So what happens now? We are charging her with criminal mischief and vandalism." Given the pattern of behavior, filing false police reports, the theft of your shovel, and now this, the prosecutor wants to pursue charges. All of that for a shovel and some graffiti. It is not about the individual incidents. It is about the pattern. She has wasted police resources multiple times with false reports, committed theft, vandalized community property, and based on what I am hearing, she might be liable for fraud related to the HOA contract situation. The county prosecutor takes this stuff seriously. What do I need to do? Just be available to give a statement if needed. We will be in touch. 2 weeks later, I got a call from the county prosecutor's office asking me to come in and give a formal statement. I spent 2 hours going over everything that had happened. The shovel, the fake HOA bylaws, the truck blocking incident, the false complaints. They recorded it all and had me sign paperwork confirming my statement. Is Brenda being charged with all of this? I asked the prosecutor, a sharp woman in her 40s named Jennifer Hayes. We are building a case. The challenge is that a lot of it is civil rather than criminal. The HOA contract situation, for example. That is a civil matter between her and the HOA. But the false police reports, the theft, and the vandalism are definitely criminal. What kind of penalties are we talking about? Worst case for her, probably probation, fines, and restitution. This is not the kind of thing that usually results in jail time unless she has priors, which she does not. So she gets a slap on the wrist. I would not call probation and a criminal record a slap on the wrist. It will affect her for years. Background checks, job applications, professional licenses. It adds up. I left the prosecutor's office feeling conflicted. Part of me wanted Brenda to face real consequences. Another part of me just wanted the whole situation to be over. The HOA held elections a month later. Tom Richardson was elected president by a landslide. Sandra Kim remained as secretary. Paul Henderson remained as treasurer. I was elected to the board as a general member. It was not a position I had wanted, but enough neighbors had asked me to run that I felt obligated. At our first official board meeting, Tom brought up the subject of Brenda. She has been sending emails to homeowners claiming she was illegally removed and demanding to be reinstated as president. Is anyone listening to her? I asked. Not really. Most people either ignore the emails or forward them to me asking what to do. Should we send out something official telling everyone to disregard her messages? Paul shook his head. That might make it worse. It gives her attention. I say we just let it fade away. Eventually she will stop. We agreed to monitor the situation but not engage unless necessary. Brenda did not stop though. Over the next few weeks, she escalated. She started showing up at people's houses demanding to see their properties to check for violations. When people refused to let her in, she would take photos from the street and send emails listing alleged violations. She sent a certified letter to the HOA demanding access to all financial records. She filed a complaint with the county clerk's office claiming the board had violated open meeting laws. Each complaint was investigated and dismissed. Each violation notice was ignored, but it was exhausting dealing with her constant harassment. Then in early April, I got a call from Jennifer Hayes at the prosecutor's office. Owen, I wanted to let you know that Brenda Patterson has accepted a plea deal. What kind of deal? She is pleading guilty to 1 count of filing a false police report and 1 count of criminal mischief. The theft charge is being dropped because you did get your shovel back and the value was under $100. She will serve 18 months of probation, pay restitution for the clubhouse damage, and complete community service hours. No jail time. No jail time. This is a first offense, and the charges are relatively minor. The judge felt probation was appropriate. What about the HOA contract situation? That is still a civil matter. The HOA is pursuing a lawsuit against her for the unauthorized expenditure. That is separate from the criminal case. After I hung up, I called Tom and filled him in. He sounded relieved. At least it is something. Paul has been working with our HOA attorney on the civil suit. We should be filing within the next month. What are you asking for? The full amount she cost us, plus attorney fees. It is about $40,000 total. I whistled. That is serious money. She made a serious mistake. The attorney thinks we have a strong case. The civil lawsuit was filed in May. Brenda fought it, claiming she had acted in good faith and the board had ratified her actions after the fact. The problem with that argument was that we had detailed meeting minutes showing the board had explicitly not ratified anything, and in fact had removed her as president because of it. The case went to mediation in July. I was not directly involved, but Tom kept me updated. Brenda's attorney apparently advised her to settle because the evidence against her was overwhelming. She agreed to pay the HOA $30,000 over 5 years at $500 per month. It was not the full amount, but it was something. By the end of summer, things had finally settled down. Brenda stopped sending emails and stopped showing up at people's houses. I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that she was thinking about selling her house and moving. I hoped it was true. In September, I was plowing my driveway after an early season snowstorm when Brenda's minivan pulled up. My stomach tightened. She rolled down her window. "Owen, can we talk?" I kept my hand on my phone, ready to call the sheriff if needed. "What do you want, Brenda?" I wanted to apologize. For everything, I was out of line. I studied her face. She looked tired, older, the fight had gone out of her. "Okay," I said carefully. "I am selling the house. I am moving to Arizona to be near my daughter. I just wanted to say I am sorry before I left." "Why did you do it, all of it?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I thought I was helping. I thought if I could just control things, make everything perfect, then the neighborhood would be better. But I took it too far. I know that now. You cost yourself a lot of money and got a criminal record. I know, it was stupid. I just wanted you to know that I am sorry. You did not deserve any of it." "No, I did not. For what it is worth, you are a good neighbor. You did the right thing that day during the storm. I should have let you go help those people instead of making it about me and the neighborhood." I did not know what to say to that. Finally, I just nodded. "Thanks for apologizing. I hope Arizona works out for you." She nodded and drove away. I never saw her again. Brenda's house sold in October. A young couple with 2 kids moved in. They were friendly and normal and showed up to HOA meetings without trying to take over. It was a relief. That winter, we had another big storm. I was plowing for the county again when Tom called. "Owen, any chance you can swing by the neighborhood when you get a chance? We need the streets cleared." "Sure, I can probably be there in a few hours." "Perfect. We already approved the budget at last month's meeting, same rate as before." "Sounds good." I finished my county route and headed to Pinecrest Mountain Estates. As I turned onto our street, I saw kids building snowmen, neighbors helping each other shovel driveways, and people waving as I drove past with the plow. It felt like a real community. That evening, Marcus came over with beers and we sat on my porch watching the sunset over the mountains. "Remember last year when all that crazy stuff went down?" he said. "Hard to forget. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you had just plowed the neighborhood that morning instead of going to Highway 9? I thought about it. The families stranded on the highway with small children. The medical emergencies that got through because the roads were clear. The people I had helped who genuinely needed it. No, I said. I made the right choice. Brenda was never going to be happy no matter what I did. At least this way I actually helped people who needed it. True. And hey, at least you got your shovel back, I laughed. Yeah, there is that, though honestly, after everything, I should have just let her keep it. Are you kidding? That thing is legendary now. The shovel that started the war. Please do not call it that. Too late. I already told the story to like 12 people. You are neighborhood famous. Great. That is exactly what I wanted. We sat in comfortable silence, drinking our beers and watching the sky turn from orange to purple to dark blue. The storm had passed, the neighborhood was at peace, and life was back to normal. Somewhere in Arizona, Brenda was probably dealing with a completely different HOA, hopefully with a bit more perspective and a lot less need for control. I wished her well, in a distant kind of way. The whole situation had been exhausting and frustrating and expensive for everyone involved, but it had also taught me something about community. Real community was not about perfect driveways and enforced rules and mandatory compliance. It was about people helping each other when it mattered. It was about making the right choice even when someone was screaming at you to do something else. It was about standing up for what was right instead of what was easy. And sometimes, it was about having the only plow truck in the neighborhood and knowing when to use it. Bear barked from inside, reminding me it was dinner time. I finished my beer, said goodnight to Marcus, and went inside to feed my dog. Through the window, I could see lights coming on in houses up and down the street, families settling in for the evening, normal life in a normal neighborhood. It had taken a blizzard, a stolen shovel, a Karen HOA president, and a whole lot of drama to get here. But we had made it through, and if another big storm rolled in tomorrow, I would do exactly the same thing all over again, because that was what the job required. That was what people needed. And no amount of HOA rules or threats or fake bylaws was going to change that. I filled Bear's bowl and scratched behind his ears while he ate. The house was warm, my truck was ready for the next storm, and my shovel was safely locked in my garage where it belonged. Life was good. The neighborhood was good. And Brenda Patterson was someone else's problem now. I could not ask for much more than that.